So let me begin by introducing Paul Kulig. Paul, and they're each sitting in the order that I'll be introducing them, but you can give a little wave when I say your name. Paul is a principal at Planning Alliance, and he has over 15 years experience in urban design and the construction of public streets, urban landscapes, and transportation hubs across this province. He is both an architect and an urban designer, and he's worked on a whole variety of different projects for the private sector, the public sector, as well as the not-for-profit sector. Some of his most recent work in the City of Toronto includes work at the 6-point interchange in Etobicoke, a very complicated highway configuration that we're trying to turn into a livable place. The development of complete streets guidelines for Eglinton corridor, that is Eglinton Connects. He's also worked on the Dundas West streetscape, and he's also worked on Bloor Street and St. George Street, some of our most important complete streets that we have today in the City of Toronto. Welcome, Paul. It's great to have you here. He'll be coming up momentarily.
Thank you, Jen. I appreciate the opportunity to be up here and present with everybody, and hopefully expect that some of the lessons we've learned on Eglinton can inform you and the rest of the city as you go through the process of developing the complete streets guidelines. As Jen mentioned, Eglinton's a fascinating place. It extends literally the entire breadth of the city, 12 wards, every single one of the pre-amalgamation municipalities. And it includes everything from fully naturalized ravines with extensive woodlots to hyper-urbanized areas. You can see Yonge and Eglinton in the corner where I think you're getting 50, 60-story development applications. It also includes large extents of post-war industrial suburbs. This is the Golden Mile at Warden, where there's a transition from industry to retail, and then eventually, with some of the planning proposed, mixed use. Heidi, if you're out there, yes, we did use drones. Again, Eglinton, if you very quickly overlay it with all the proposed and new or existing infrastructure, I think we end up with 7 interchanges of some form of rapid transit or another. And you can see it's the line right in the middle, cutting through the city end to end. Let's go this way. In total, we're at 19 kilometers, and then if you extend the future extension out to the airport, there's an additional 7 kilometers, includes 25 stations, and in sum totals a $5.3 billion investment. So that's the transit, and then all the proposed streetscape improvements, infrastructure, and everything that goes along with that. In essence, we're serving a catchment area of over 500,000 people. These are people that will be feeding through it, into it, one way or another, interacting with the line, the corridor, and the infrastructure. Eglinton itself has a wide range and a diverse mix of neighborhoods. You can see we've got everything from the kind of Main Street type of commercial, which is very typical through the central segment. A lot of activity, small shops, patios, but very tight sidewalks, few trees, and snow storage. We have that problem here in Toronto, although it melts in a week. We also have a very active small business community that uses the street in various ways, and you can see some of this life happens without the benefit of, again, decent trees, furniture, or anything that you'd expect in a complete streets. Eglinton's choked by traffic, especially when you get to some of the corridors where the Allen Expressway or other highways feed large volumes of vehicles onto the street. This is a common sight. And then interestingly, we also have an incredible congestion of buses. And so this is where the real opportunity of Eglinton comes in, is because the LRT through the central section is below ground, a lot of that traffic is going to be eliminated, at least the bus traffic. The other thing about Eglinton is there's zero cycling infrastructure. When I ride Eglinton, my face is like his as well, and it's only the bravest of urban explorers that are found on Eglinton. But it also connects down into the ravines, the amazing network of open spaces that provide the amenity to people that can't afford a cottage. So there was a big effort by the city to make sure that it was connected to those, and that Leslie and other stops along the ravines did make it into the final plans. So we did a lot of work slicing and dicing Eglinton, depending on the right-of-way width, the land use, the character, and I identified, I think, 20 unique areas. And I'm going to walk you through very briefly the most typical sort of central section. So this is a section right through, I believe we're around Oakwood, if you know the area, just west of the Allen Expressway. Very typically 27 meters wide. It's a tight section. The kind of Main Street characters is ubiquitous throughout here. A lot of small businesses. The existing conditions got about 5 lanes of traffic. 2 of those are typically reserved for buses at any given time, typically during rush hour. Center lane is a turn lane, and then really you're left with about 1 lane of traffic in either way. Carrying anywhere from 700 to 1,300 people an hour, but then incredibly 12 to 2,600 by bus for a total capacity of anywhere from 23 to 3,600. So again, the big opportunity here is we're putting in the LRT underground, which means that these buses become redundant, go down there, frees up that space, and I'm going in circles here, but we free up that space for potentially trees. So on this typical section, we're looking at trees and bike lanes, and then alternating between the trees, parked cars. So there are going to be laybys through that central section with a continuous bike lane as well. And then what's left is a center left-hand turn lane, much like it is today, with 1 lane in each direction. So because of that infrastructure investment underground, we have a lot of opportunity to do things above grade. And you can kind of work through the numbers and you see the capacity of the LRT more than, let's say, doubles, triples in this instance, the overall capacity of the road to carry people. And this doesn't even include the people on bikes or pedestrians in the equation. So very briefly, I'm just going to walk through the kind of typical section, and again, the importance of imagery in these, in the process and in the public process for communicating these things. Typical sections left with about a 2.8 meter space reserved for patios, commercial activity, a 2.1 meter clearway, that's sort of City of Toronto minimum we've been working to, and then a reasonably generous 1.6 meter bike lane in these central sections, with an additional 2.2 meters that's left over for either the trees or the parking. And again, those sort of alternate, typically 3 spots, 3 trees, 3 spots, 3 trees, but generally responding to the conditions locally. Now the unfortunate thing, that's the easy part. I'm an architect, I'm an urban designer, there's a lot of really good engineers, people can calculate these numbers, draw the sections, that's easy. The real problem is getting this out into the public in a way that people understand, communicate, engage, and then ultimately champion. And that's the rest of the story that Alex and then the rest of the team will be sharing with us. Thank you.